Yeah, welcome to this panel. It's my great pleasure to host and maybe also guide this panel. Having a topic which is really very close to my heart, and this is international research collaboration, and I think most of us also sitting here in this room have a long experience in international research collaboration. This is what their lives maybe shaped. And this is also what we have taken more or less for granted. And now we see that this might not be the case. And I'm extremely delighted to have this excellent panel with me, which is internationally composed and also brings a lot of different facets to this panel. So I will introduce the panelists as we go. So start maybe with first introductory round and the first kind of set of questions. And if you look at the system as we have it now and look at what we are used to, that we have seen that international collaborations are the one that bring together researchers, bring together the greatest minds in certain topics, foster innovation, and so on. So what is your take on what we are seeing right now? And I'd like to start with Astrid Lambrecht, with a kind of German perspective, but no worries, I won't nail you down to the German perspective. Okay. As we heard, Astrid Lambrecht is a quantum physicist. This is not what we heard right now. She is the chair of board of directors of Forschungszentrum Jülich, and from this she was mentioned quite some time now. And yeah, so what is your take on what we are experiencing right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much. That I think it's well, it's a very broad question. First of all, I must say, in my scientific career, which is long-lasting now, it's really surprising what is happening now. The first of my impression is surprise. How I mean, I did not expect this. Personally, this development of this fragmented geopolitical situation, where we have to ask ourselves, with whom can we collaborate, under which conditions, what do we need as a framework now, what questions do we need to consider? Because for me, when I started science was open. I mean, we had international corporations that is intrinsic to science. I think it's extremely important. International cooperation. Science is international. We share knowledge, we share expertise, and that makes it also very attractive. And it fosters innovation, as you said. So it's somehow a bit counterintuitive and contradictory, it seems. But nevertheless, we have to deal, I would say, in a very rational way with that question. And we need certainly, we need maybe some norms, some guideline. I think many institutions are also working on that now. What is the process that we set up? I think we need more strategic considerations and we need a very good risk-benefit assessment in order to decide with whom we collaborate, on which topics. It needs to be precise, content-driven and not pure bureaucracy or controlling processes. I think that is very important.
Thank you for this first insight. We move on to your neighbor, to kind of the French perspective in this set, and this is Thierry Couan, and he's a French mathematician. And after serving as advisor on education, higher education research and innovation to French President Emmanuel Macron, 2017 to 20, he was president of the High Council of Evaluation of Research and Higher Education. And since September well, now 2 years ago. He's interim president of Institut Politique.
More interim.
No,
The interim has finished.
Oh, okay, no
Yes,
longer
yes.
interim. He's now president of Institut Politique de Paris.
Polytechnique.
And it's great to have you here and to hear your perspective on this. Sorry for the interim.
No worries. So first, I should emphasize that Astrid knows very well the French system. And by the way, when I arrived, she had to leave the board of the Institut Polytechnique de Paris because she has to take this huge responsibility in Germany. So congratulations, but regret as well. So we are in a very paradoxical situation. On the one hand, there is the return of geopolitical conflict at a level that we had not seen for years, hopefully. And there is an increasing competition in innovation. I mean, when we speak of quantum AI, space research, I mean, there is a struggle there. That's one side. The other side is that if we speak of climate change, and the COP30 is currently going on, then more than ever there should be, a world circulation of ideas. Next February at the Institut Polytechnique de Paris, we are organizing a conference on climate change. Of course, everybody will be there. I would like to emphasize, you asked about the French landscape. I would like to emphasize the fact that an increased competition has been good for the French system because we had to break silos. I mean, my job is to take 6 engineering schools, very French, very rooted in the 18th century, and to transform this into an international 21st century Institute of Science and Technology. And we spoke in the preceding panel, they spoke about the connection between an industry and academic research. I mean, all this has had to move at last in France, too slowly, but it had to move also because of this increased competition. Now, in our situation as Institut Polytechnique de Paris, we are in a very paradoxical situation because we are very French, very connected to sovereignty issues. We have 2 military schools, the École Polytechnique and ENSTA are under the Ministry of Defense. Other schools are under the Ministry of Economy, so we have to serve the big challenges of society, AI, health, climate, and so on, and also the challenges of France and Europe. But on the other hand, and I see no contradiction, maybe a tension, but on the other hand, we have 40% of international students and 40% of international staff. And I feel that a balance can be found there, and that this is not a problem. This is just our challenge. And finally, this new international situation just makes Europe appear as absolutely vital. So we are in a European alliance with TUM, with the Danish of DTU, with Eindhoven, also with Technion and EPFL. And I mean, that's the level at which we have to act. And I mean, yesterday I was so happy to learn that we won an ERC funding. So I mean, we are playing at this level. That's a consequence of the situation. We have no other choice. We wanted this, but now no other choice.
Yeah, you mentioned the role of Europe, and so we are delighted to have you here, Maria Leptin. She is the president of the European Research Council, ERC, since 2021, and a biologist by training. And since we talked so much about Europe, does this situation make Europe stronger, or what are the challenges, but also the opportunities maybe for Europe?
Very interesting. And everything that's in my notes has already been said. So I'll ad-lib a little bit. Like Astrid, as a researcher myself and others here, I, of course, totally understand the value of international interactions for science. They come naturally to us. We live in that. We love to share information because we like to get feedback on our own discoveries, on our own thoughts, and we learn from others. So it's totally natural. And in fact, international cooperation has been a strength in Europe. We have the shining example of CERN, you know, a collaboration that's been going on for decades and is a symbol for the world. The organization I led beforehand, EMBO, the EMBL. So we have many good examples of how that's working, where we don't see what the minister said this morning: if I can't have it, then let others not have it either. The ERC is another example. So the fact that the US and China and probably others are currently using their advantage and key technologies as instruments of power is, of course, very worrying. In some cases, like in the case of Taiwan, maybe their advantage in technology protects them, but that's a special case. And that's why the political discourse across Europe now rightly emphasizes the urgency of strengthening our own research and innovation capacity, and for excellent science. And I've been hearing too little about that this morning. You need money, you need freedom, they're connected. You can't be free to do research if you don't have the money to do research. High quality infrastructure and a supportive academic environment. And there too, I think the freedom to explore must be emphasized more. So research thrives when scientists are free to follow their curiosity, to challenge each other. And there's one thing I want to talk about, and that is we're talking about collaboration. And I mentioned examples of collaboration. A really important thing for science to work well is also competition. I've always say that. You can't do research, but in its nature, it's competitive. If you want to discover something, you've got to get there first. Otherwise, it's not a discovery. And so collaboration is great. Competition is part and parcel of excellence. And that's one of the important things about the ERC. It's competitive, and it drives people across Europe, and that's its added value. Politicians, if our citizens ask us, what's the EU added value of giving our money to the ERC to select a few far and few in between? It doesn't give us anything back. What it gives back is the competition, because it drives everyone to excel in a higher competition. Champions League is going on right now. Without Champions League, our national teams wouldn't be as good. So that's the added value. The other thing that I want to bring as an example of from the ERC is something the minister also mentioned, Minister Baer mentioned this morning, and that is trust. Trust our researchers. Give them time, give them money, give them trust. Stop attaching strings to the money. And that's what the ERC does too. Give them trust, and that allows them the freedom across Europe to compete and do their best and bring their best ideas to support innovation.
Thank you. Now let's bring the British perspective maybe in, and we are delighted to have Hugh Brady in our team here on our panel. He is, as we also heard, the president of Imperial College London. What do you see about cooperation, and as we now also see not only cooperation, but also competition in this fragmented world in which we seem to have, well, in which we are now, not seem to go, but really are now.
So I should say, maybe by way of context, so I'm a nephrologist, I'm a clinician scientist,
Right.
and most of my research career was in Harvard Medical School and the Brigham and Women's Hospital. So seeing what's happened in my old stomping ground is both professionally concerning but personally concerning, and particularly when you talk to many former colleagues. Also, I'm a relative newcomer to the UK, but my arrival coincided with sequentially Brexit, a pandemic, and now this situation. I claim, hopefully there's no causation associated. But I think, if anything, now is a time for us to double down in terms of international collaboration. And of course, we have lived experience of this, because parking the politics of Brexit, it was deeply concerning for our entire scientific community in Imperial and the UK. But it was a time when the UK and European scientific community really put their shoulders to the wheel to come up with solutions. And I really should compliment Maria for the work that she did to ensure that we still had access to the ERC review process, so that and then our own government underwrote the funding, and it was excellent.
Disclaimer. You can't thank me for that.
Well,
I can take no credit for that.
You worked really hard with us to eventually get us to associate again, and I've never ever received so many positive emails from colleagues as the day that we associated. Thank you to all of you for that. It's great to be back. Put it that way. But what it did do is it caused us to actually evaluate our international, collaborative arrangements. So what it did do is it caused us to look at we have about 6 bilaterals across the world. One with CNRS in France, one with TUM in Munich, one with MIT. So it really doubled down on those, and that now has stayed with us. It also caused us to look at the areas in the world where we have the greatest concentration of collaborative activity, and to open in the last 18 months, 4 global hubs, one in Bangalore, one in Accra, one in Singapore, and one in San Francisco. And again, we didn't anticipate what was going to happen in the US, but what they have done is provided really interesting bridges between research and innovation ecosystems with multiple benefits that we hadn't anticipated. So I think let's use this as an opportunity to think about how Europe asserts itself central stage as a trusted, excellence-driven, impactful partner for global science. That's truly what's at play for us. We wouldn't have liked the driver to be, what it is, but actually it is an opportunity, and I really hope we will go for it.
Right. Thank you for these impulses, and we'll come back later to it. But before we do so, I'd like to integrate the last panelist in this round, which is Stefan Asen-Kerschbaumer, and he, since 2022, is chairman of the supervisory board of Robert Bosch. And until 2021, he was deputy chairman of the board of management of Robert Bosch and chief financial officer. So he brings in the perspective of research-driven industry. And so we are looking forward and interested in your take on this.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Fragmentation. We are a global company, and a really, truly global company. 80% of our turnover we generate outside of Germany. And so fragmentation is nothing new for us. So we face fragmentation every day. It's a daily business. However, and maybe this might be of surprise, at least for some of you, we can't see any major obstacles currently in our international scientific collaborations. But, and this is affecting us, but not only us, also our other institutions, the geopolitics hinders the exchange of knowledge. And maybe there's even more coming. For example, there's a new ICTS regulations from March 26. ICTS stands for Information, Communication, Technology and Services by the US Bureau of Industry and Security. And this new regulation, ICTS regulation, prohibits the import of software for connected autonomous vehicles into the US if it is written by Chinese developers. So, of course, this regulation targets Chinese manufacturers, but you all can imagine it's also affecting us as international companies. But what's really working is the personal connections. And so we, for example, we employ international teams working on solutions for international markets. And I'm personally totally convinced, especially in times of geopolitical tensions and fragmentation, the personal exchange, especially in the scientific community, is the key element for building bridges across nations.
Thank you. So, yeah. So, in all we discussed, we touched upon it, sometimes slightly touched upon it, but the big fact, it's not elephant or fact in the room, is the situation in the US. And I want to be a bit more explicit on in this. What we all know is that a lot of our scientific collaborations in Germany, but all over Europe, are with US partners. Most of all publications are with US partners. R&D developments are with US partners. And on the other hand, we see a government that stops things, sometimes ideology-driven, sometimes it might also see kind of random, but a lot of it might be ideology-driven in very, very important and also future-looking areas like medicine or climate and other things. So how can we cope with this situation? What is our answer? I'll start with you again.
Not easy question. But maybe first of all, of course, we are concerned about the ongoing debate about freedom of research. And we are also concerned about the new regulations for entry and also for residents. Because we employ about 40,000 people in US, and of course, their welfare is vital for us. But it's also vital for us to keep our teams and to keep our top talents. And we all have been able maybe to read recently of brain drain. And I must say, based on our experience in our scientific collaboration, we can't see any brain drain of top talents. But what we do see, that there's an increasing willingness of top universities in the US to collaborate with industrial partners because of the federal budget cuts. And I think this is really excellent. And so we have the chance, our research teams work together with the 14 top universities in the US, and we are working together in a really wide variety of technologies from AI to healthcare. Mm-hmm. And maybe my overall perspective is currently the transatlantic scientific cooperation still remains strong. But, of course, we have to monitor closely how it develops. And we all know the situation in America can change from day to day.
Mm-hmm. From minute to minute. Maria, we discussed that maybe this is also a chance, or in some cases we observed this, that this might also be an opportunity for Europe to concentrate on common themes, common values, common topics. Does it have positive aspects for Europe? And the Minister Baer also, she said, she referred this morning to the Global Talents Program, which of course is not only for US scientists, but can you see a positive aspect in it? Or what is more broadly, what is the European take on this?
The answer to your question is an emphatic no.
Good.
No, there is nothing positive in it. To talk of, an opportunity for brain gain is cynical. I think that's really unfair to our American colleagues who are not the cause of the situation. It's also naive because, if we've seen a brain drain to the US over the past 5-7 decades, why don't we ask ourselves why we've seen that brain drain? Why do we need a Trump to make us think what we can do to get our talent back? Why do we not see what's missing here? I know these panels are here exactly to look at that. So A, that is naive, and B, it's cynical. So we've got to do something in Europe to make ourselves attractive for the people whom we want to gain, regardless of whether there's a Trump out there or not. I think I was thinking quietly while I was listening to everyone, the brain power in this room, the people at this level know this. So we've really got to emphasize this. We are also, I agree entirely with you, we're not going to get the Nobel laureates from Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, etc. here through bigger grants or whatever. They're there. And some of them are actually, one colleague we talked to from Harvard who was asked, look, there's going to be these great offers, Choose Europe grants, etc. Aren't you interested? She said, doesn't matter, even if you offer me whatever. At this moment, I can't leave. I've got to fight with my colleagues here to change the situation back. So that's how I think we should see it. And I mean, I could go on, but that's where I'll stop. I know. Yes, actually, what I do want to mention, and this is again for politicians and for politics to think about, one of the worst direct effects also for us and for any of these brains we want to gain is the fact, again, how global is science and how little has Europe taken its role seriously? We all depend on databases. On climate, on health, long-term studies, on model organism databases, protein databases, AlphaFold, etc. Actually, AlphaFold databases in Europe, sorry. But most of them are financed through American funding, and we're losing them. The climate, the ocean database collection is financed through NOAA. 40% of that is financed through that. It's gone. We're losing out. And European politics has to do something about this. I know the European government has pledged a good bunch of money to sort of step into the breach, but it's not sufficient. And we have to have a long-term solution, how we share responsibilities for those things worldwide. And we, Europe, have to play a role there too.
Thank you. Thierry, France was already very early up in this round, very outspoken about the situation with the US and what you can do, and open also to if it's not a brain drain, it's a brain circulation, but what to do. What is your take on this?
First, we are often outspoken. In France, we are less often efficient. So we try to be efficient, right? Well, the US situation, first, counter model, but let's not forget that it has been a model, and it still is a model in some sense. I mean, the Silicon Valley, seamless connections between research, private capital, strategic priorities. So we should keep something of this model and try to build our own model. I mean, sovereignty, but also academic freedom. I mean, there can be a slightly different balance, but we still have lessons to take from the US ecosystem. The second thing is that there are risks, obviously. I would not say that there are opportunities, because I want to stay friends with Maria. There is a responsibility. We do have a responsibility in this situation. So, I mean, the US they will invest even more in artificial intelligence, in quantum, and so on and so forth. And they will disengage from health, as you said, from climate research, and so on and so forth. So we have to step up in all these fields. And, I mean, let us... indeed, we should not caricature. We still have strong connections with our colleagues and friends in the US. We have to keep these connections with them. I mean, at Institut Polytechnique de Paris, we have, for instance, with Harvard, the Harvard Data Science Initiative. We have an emerging cooperation, and we will still try to foster this. But we do have, as far as opening our doors to brilliant students and to our colleagues, if they want to to breathe fresh air, we have to do this. And I was impressed, I must say, by the European initiative on Choose Europe for Science. And we tried, I mean, for once, we tried to be efficient in France and to have our own Choose France for Science initiative. And we will try to do our best in this respect.
Yeah. Astrid, from the perspective of Forschungszentrum Jülich and your experience as a scientist, we not only speak about people, which is extremely important to speak about people, but we also speak about research infrastructures, data, which is enormously important for your research at Jülich, but also for the others. So what is your take on this?
Yeah, I maybe would also like to comment what was said before, although I don't have really much to add. But we observe, of course, that we still collaborate strongly with the US, but we see that some sort of contracts we cannot sustain anymore, like contracts from NIH were not possible to continue. The boundary conditions changed, and we regretted that very much. But still, also the topic of biodiversity was not wished upon by the US anymore. So, but people approached us in Jülich and I think elsewhere in Germany to say, please save these topics. They are very important and we cannot continue with them. So please take them up. And we continue at a later stage. I found that very interesting. This perspective is somehow also echoing what Maria said. We do not observe that many people want to leave, at least established scientists. They say, we stay. We maintain our position here. We maintain the position of science. But maybe the people, young postdocs or PhD students who would have chosen US, they might now think about other possibilities. And I also think that Europe has a very, very strong role here to say, and I also don't want to contradict Maria, but I think at least there is nothing positive about it, but it was a wake-up call for Europe.
Yes.
A wake-up call to what do we want, where do we stand, are we sovereign, do we have an autonomy, or where are we very dependent, and what do we need to do? Our database, as you said, is largely supplied by other countries. This is not a sustainable model for us. So it was really a wake-up call for Europe and for the different countries to think about what do we need to do in order to have a strong position and be a strong partner also for the US. And I think that's even more important. And now I come back to your question, Bettina. The infrastructure, you said, Thierry, US is massively investing in AI, in quantum computing and big infrastructure. And now the question is, indeed, for Europe, how do we want to position ourselves? Yeah. And where do we stand? Where do we want to go? And I think in Jülich, but also in all of Germany and in Europe, this with the gigafactories, this is just one example. What do we need to do in order to catch up and to maintain a position and to be a strong partner for our international colleagues? I think that's...
Totally with you on that one. Kick us out of our complacency.
Thank you.
The term wake-up call was mentioned. You talked about Brexit before, which was also maybe a wake-up call of what happened afterwards to research and science. Is it again for you a wake-up call to think about European collaboration, integration, cooperation in this sense, or how do you see this?
Yeah, I mean, I think we wish the circumstances, we wish the drivers weren't what they are, as Maria said. I mean, the overall effect of what's happening is really bad for science, really bad for humanity, really bad for the planet. But the practical implications, as has been said, I mean, we're seeing really top-class US academics and expats in the US now looking at Imperial and other European institutions as an opportunity. So it has shone a spotlight on Europe and the quality of European science. As Astrid said, we are seeing superb either PhD candidates or scientists from India whose natural home would have been the US, now looking at Europe as a really attractive option. So I suppose that the challenge for us all is, now how do we really build on that? And then how do you couple that with Draghi's challenge to us all to kind of say, well, let's not just build excellent science, but let's look at the impact of that science. Right. And can we again use this as a moment in time where we build our research ecosystem, but try and boost our innovation capabilities so we start to really compete with the US. So it is a window of opportunity. Wish it hadn't happened in this way, but sometimes you've got to take advantage of the circumstances.
Okay, thank you. So we talked about Europe, we talked about the US, but there's certainly at least one third player we should talk about, and this is China, because this is rising not only economically, but for sure also in research, in our collaborations with research, but with other aspects, thinking about security issues in research. So how should we handle this? How should we handle cooperations with China? Are we more on the side to say, well, this might all be very risky, and to be risk averse, let's stay away from it? Or what's your opinion on this?
Yeah, we as Marsh, we are in China since 1909. And today, China is our biggest foreign market. We employ 50,000 people in China. They have 1/4 in research and development. And of course, systemic competition and geopolitical tensions are causing friction point. But a little bit similar to US, currently we can't see any major problems in our scientific collaboration. Our scientific collaboration remain strong. And one great example is our collaboration with the Tsinghua University. Tsinghua University is a top university in the field of artificial intelligence. And we jointly have developed an AI method being able to speed up computation 1,000 times. So it's really impressive. But now, looking ahead, I'm convinced China won't take off its foot of the accelerator. And in my view, if you don't want to fall behind, we have to stay engaged, maybe with some kind of pragmatic and vigilant approach.
Yeah. Maybe Astrid Lambrecht, exactly to you, because your collaborations in particular technical issues with China, how do you also struck the balance between being open, kind of learning from what they do, including the expertise, but on the other side, assessing the risks?
Yeah. I mean, China is very strong in many scientific domains now, and that we must not underestimate. They have really made very important progress, and when you go there, it's really very impressive what they have built up. So I think, I mean, this decoupling, like we do not collaborate anymore, is not really a good way forward and a constructive way forward. By the way, Jülich has a lot of Chinese people, of course, in all stages, PhD students, postdocs, but also permanent researchers. And this is historically grown, and they also need to feel welcome. I mean, nevertheless, we now, so we would not want to cut collaboration with China completely, but we need to be, and this is what I said in the beginning, we need to really carefully assess what we do with whom. So we have a very topic and institution-sensitive process with China, meaning we look at the institution that wants to collaborate with us. What is the topic, like quantum computing? Maybe not. Neuromorphic computing, maybe not. But as was already said, climate research, we have to think about it, right? And then it's also the question, what is the instrument? What is the funding instrument? Is it a Chinese instrument, or is it an instrument that we control and where we can precisely say what will the working program? So it's really a de-risking strategy. We know that we need to be very careful, and I think for Jülich and the Helmholtz Centers, that's particular because we are 90% government funded, and I see our new president here in the public, and Martin Keller, and he is worried, maybe also at what I say, but it's... but I think we need to, it was said, we need a pragmatic way forward. Like closing the door, I think in the end this will also hinder innovation and knowledge and excellent science in Europe and in Germany, but we need to be very careful. But we also need to accept that we will not have 100% security. That is maybe more difficult for a German perspective than for a French perspective, I have the feeling. So we have to accept some uncertainty. But this is inherent to science. So I keep it like that. And
Thierry was nodding a lot, and the French perspective was mentioned.
Yes.
So.
Okay. So the first thing is that China is not a rising power; it's a major scientific power. I mean, I remember the first time I went to Tsinghua at the beginning of my career. They were drilling holes to pass internet cables. I mean, and the paper in math were just copies or weak versions of the international papers who are in a totally different situation. They are major scientific power. No, so now we do have, as I said, we have 2 military schools inside IP Paris, in particular the École Polytechnique, but we do have Chinese students, and we will still have Chinese students. We even have a school in Shanghai with our friends from PSL, but I mean, it's a Franco-Chinese school and engineering school, and I mean we are careful and we monitor things. So as it was said, we can't and we won't cut ties, but we have to redefine ties. And the question is probably not with whom do we publish, but with whom do we share critical technologies.
Yeah. We had the topic de-risking. Is it something we could do in a European?
I'm not sure, but I do want to get back to some of these points. So as everyone said, China leads. There's still the attitude, yes, they throw money at known problems and copy. No longer true. They don't give freedom. No longer true. The colleagues who are given opportunities in China now are having money thrown at them. As I said earlier, you need money for freedom of research, and they're given total freedom. China will reap the benefits from this. You know, if not now, then in 3, 5, 10 years' time. And if we don't do the same, we're just being dumb. So I think, and then we've all heard from everybody, collaborate with some care. I think the main problem we still have and must continue to have is at a different level, and that's almost an ethical level. And if I may cite the horrific example from the UK, Sheffield Hallam University last week, a researcher who was looking into human rights abuses in China, doing research in China, was told by the Chinese to stop. They started attacking the university to stop her, stopped access of Chinese students who wanted to register at that university, thereby undercutting potential income for the university, asked the university to stop her. The university did. A UK university caved in to Chinese pressure. So we do have that too. We mustn't forget that. That is not to say that we should shut ourselves down, but I think we do have to remember that our value of freedom of research, freedom of opinion, is constantly being undermined, and we've got to be careful there too. Now, what did you ask about the other?
De-risking. Whether
de-risking.
This was my original question.
Well, you de-risk. Mark wants to say something.
Mark is not on the panel right now.
Let someone else answer that one.
Okay, so UK universities were mentioned, and speaking about China, of course, it's a major player. But also, you mentioned in your previous, like India. What about the major players to come that are not yet there? So maybe you can talk about UK if you like at this point, but also your experience with the ones to come.
Sure, and I should say to Astrid, if you get into trouble with your boss, we'd love to have you at Imperial.
Very good.
Same for us.
I think, I mean, but just on China, I mean, your question was a great one. I mean,
Right.
how do we approach it? And I agree with everything. One is we engage, and two is with eyes wide open. And obviously, for a STEM, predominantly STEM institution such as Imperial, there are areas which we absolutely realise we cannot and should not engage. There are grey areas, and the UK government has a very effective way of consulting with them on those. But we're not going to solve pandemic preparedness, water security, food security, AMR, unless we engage with China. And as has been said, they are now a net producer of really high quality research, and that has changed. But I think, yeah, I mean, India is particularly exciting for us, and I mentioned that in the past year we opened what we call an Imperial Global Hub in Bangalore. Not anticipating. I wish I had been able to anticipate what was going to happen in the US, but with the intention of using it not for undergraduate education, but to allow us to scale up our research and innovation partnerships with both Indian academia and industry. And of course, given what's happened worldwide, now they more than ever are looking for trusted, like-minded partners who they feel that by working with, it's a win-win. What I also love, there was some mention of the young people, the PhD students. Both the undergraduates and master's PhD students, of course, they understand that the world is now global, that the markets are global, and they want to actually experience not just Indian science, but to learn about the culture and the markets. So you know, it is worth talking about the students, because we owe it to them to do everything that we can to ensure that science remains transnational and that their opportunities are transnational, and that we give them the mobility opportunities that maybe have been taken away in terms of, in many cases, in the US, but that they crave and that it's an obligation for us to support.
And maybe to all the panelists, so your view on what are the ones to come, and from our experience, what can we do different with the ones to come in order maybe to be in better positions? And the minister, she also said about long-term partners like Japan. What about those? Not looking just at the ones to come, but also the long-term partners. So maybe you want to share some of your views either on the long-term partners or the ones to come, and maybe given what we have learned, whether we should change our attitudes, perspectives, whatever.
Can I just come in? I mean, Horizon Europe. Let's remind ourselves. Let's talk about European success. Is the world's greatest transnational research program by far, and the fact that we hopefully will have Japan, South Korea, I mean, Canada, all of these other nations in, will only add to that. So again, it is a moment of time, an opportunity for us to really build FP10 into something really, really special.
Someone else?
So perhaps for Germany, we already heard it in the previous sessions. We lag behind in internationalization of our universities. I mean, I myself, Cologne, I tried to introduce English language as the language, at least for teaching in the life sciences, was blocked. I cite the example of success in ERC grant applications. The most successful countries are UK, Switzerland, Netherlands, Germany as well. But compared to these other three, what do they have in common? English language teaching and being very open. The number of foreign researchers. So we're still lagging behind in that. So, some universities are okay, but the welcome culture for foreigners is still not there. We still don't have, after 25 years of arguing for the European research area, we still don't have a scientist passports where we can. My husband moved from the UK to Germany, lost most of his pension. It's ridiculous. Other colleagues who were trying to be recruited in Paris, top people from Cambridge, with a French wife, couldn't move to Paris exactly for that reason. So we're still lagging behind in being really open to foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah, from a company's perspective, in our view, we always will have new and attractive markets. And so in our view, it's really important to be active in these markets. And one of our principles since decades is developing and producing in a region. And I think this kind of openness and being integrated in a specific market is a key. And this we have to continue. Something it's not necessary to think about what can we do. It's not rocket science, but we have to adapt what we have done successfully in the past.
Mm-hmm. So thank you. It seems time is running, but we are now kind of in a final round. We did a lot of analysis and assessments on what's going on. Now let's move on to the actions. And we have not only scientists in the room, as we learned, but also politics. So let's move on to the actions. What can we do? What would we love politics to do? You already mentioned some, Astrid.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I would love, and that is really bringing us back to what Minister Baer said this morning, is that here politics and science and probably also industry, they work together in a team, meaning not, with a common goal of research security, making us stronger, but not cutting all the bonds. In the sense that we try to understand the boundary conditions, but also the needs of all partners, and try to find the best solution together. I think that is really the word, because there might be tendencies, just to apply to have some regulation. Another regulation. I don't think that's a good way forward. It needs to be developed together. That would be my wish.
Yeah. Also, with respect, we'll come to this later on, but with respect to security-related issues, not to have government-defined kind of guidelines or red lines, but to work it all together. Because science and research knows best where to do, and the freedom is important. I mean, this is important. What else do you think would, I said, not only politics, but also we should do as scientists? Yeah, Thierry?
3 things. First, diversify partners. I mean, India, Australia, Japan, Israel, and so on and so forth. Second, strengthen European tools, and especially Franco-German cooperation. At noon, UDIS, which is the first league universities in France, are meeting with you, and we should go forward in this direction. I mean, also when I was at Élysée, I heard a lot about space cooperation. I heard about Mr. Jarzembek. I'm happy to see this morning that he plays an important role as a minister now. So we do have to strengthen Franco-German university cooperation. And finally, we have to diversify funding. Connection with private companies, yes, very important, but also European funding, and also, of course, national funding. But we've got, if we want to stay independent but closely connected to society, we've got to diversify our assets.
European funding, European cooperation, on this your keywords, Maria?
Well, I mean, I have to and will use this opportunity to speak pro domo. So for the ERC for fundamental research, we are extremely grateful to Commissioner Zaharyeva and Ursula von der Leyen, to Commissioner, for having fought for a standalone framework program and for a doubling of the budget. Great. That's a proposal. It recognizes the value of science. Within that, ERC has also got a doubling. importance of fundamental science and of research altogether for everything we're talking here must not be forgotten. It is under threat, especially from the right wing, especially at European level. The AfD in the Bundestag told me, why should we give money to Brussels? We can do it better ourselves. That is reflected among many, and it's for the people in this room to remember how important it is. There will be a cut of the European budget. It will not remain from 1.2 to 2 trillion. I do not see member states lining up. So all of us have to make sure when that cut comes that research is not cut, and that fundamental research and the independence of doing it in the way that serves science isn't cut. So please help.
What do you say? What we as scientists or
I'm
politicians?
sorry. We as scientists and we as politicians must go to our parliamentarians and to our member states to make that case. We can't not do it.
Okay.
Sorry.
What?
We.
What do we all the politicians need in order to come back to our topic in the last minute we have to make research in this fragmented world again and continuously successful?
I think maybe, I mean, we talked a lot about the problems affecting the US and the positives about UK and Europe. One of the positives is obviously, whereas post-COVID trust in science dropped precipitously in the US, it's quite different in Europe. But that could change in a heartbeat. So I think the one thing that I would add is we need to connect more intensely with the citizens so they understand the power and the benefits of science more than ever. Take nothing for granted, because the politicians ultimately have to serve the voters.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you to this excellent panel. And I think we touched upon some very important topics. And our time is up, but I think, here.
Yes, and I think you probably, thank you very much, Bettina, but you just stay here because otherwise if you get up, everybody gets up already.
okay.
And I would like to bring us all orderly in the lunch break.
Okay.
So thank you very much for the
this is
panel,
your
first
work.
of all.
Thank you.